Hi, everyone, and welcome again to the Ontario Caregiver Organization webinar series. These webinars bring together caregivers and subject matter experts to explore topics of interest to caregivers. We do this to support and engage chosen family, friends, and neighbors who are caring for someone. My name is Cleo Lanametz, and I'm the Manager of Caregiver Programs at OCO, and I'm pleased to be your moderator for today. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the lands we are on today. While we meet on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land which we each call home. I am joining you from the city of Orillia in the Simcoe County region, which is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg, specifically the Chippewa-Vrama First Nation, a member of the Chippewa Tri-Council and Three Fires Confederacy. This land is covered by the Williams Treaties and Upper Canada Treaties and was once part of the Coldwater Narrows Reserve. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. If you'd like to learn more about the lands you are joining from, you can learn more at nativeland.ca. This link will be posted in the chat. So our webinar today is called A Day in the Life of a Caregiver, where we will take an insightful look into the life of a caregiver and the challenges they may face. You will also learn about the Ontario Caregiver Organization and how they can provide support along the way. In today's session, OCO CEO Amy Kupal will be chatting with a caregiver, Avi Parmar, as they share their story and journey, the ups, the downs, and how OCO's free programs and services have been there for them. This may help you learn what programs and services at OCO may be beneficial for your own caregiving journey. We'll also take you on a step-by-step walkthrough today of the OCO website, showing you how to access, find, and register for programs designed to support you. We hope that by the end of today's session, you'll feel connected and heard within your caregiving role, while also getting a deeper understanding how OCO's programs can make a meaningful difference in your caregiving journey. For those of you that may not know the Ontario Caregiver Organization existed or perhaps heard of OCO but is unsure on the work we do, we simply exist for one simple reason, which is to improve the lives of Ontario's 4 million caregivers. Caregivers who are ordinary people like you and me who provide physical and or emotional support to family members, partners, friends, and neighbors, regardless of age, diagnosis of the care recipient, or where they live. So I'm so pleased to introduce our speakers. We're joined today by Amy Kupal and Avi Parmar. Amy Kupal is the CEO of the Ontario Caregiver Organization and is an experienced not-for-profit sector leader who has a Master of Education from the University of Calgary and is an Adler-trained coach. Her insights have been shared through speaking and media engagements, both internationally and here in Canada. Amy has a deep understanding of the benefits and challenges associated with caregiving. As a caregiver for most of her life, Amy helped to support her brother who had cerebral palsy. She was also a caregiver to her mother throughout her cancer journey and now supports her father through older adulthood. Welcome, Amy. I'm also pleased to welcome Avi. Avi is a dedicated caregiver, patient partner, and community leader. He is passionate about meaningful changes in healthcare. Over the years, he has come to identify himself as a caregiver, a role that has profoundly shaped his perspective and purpose. His caregiving journey has been deeply personal, supporting both of his parents simultaneously, one through cancer treatment and another now living with early onset dementia. This experience has deepened his commitment to improving support for caregivers, particularly through innovative projects that help them balance work, life, and caregiving. Avi also acts as a patient partner at Mackenzie Health and serves as board chair for CHATS, Community and Home Assistance to Seniors, where he advocates for senior independence, accessibility, and caregiving across York Region. In 2024, he received the Volunteer Recognition Award from the City of Vaughan. Welcome, Avi. So we would really like to start today with a caregiver story. And Avi, thank you so much for being here today and just being able to share your experience with us. With that, I will pass it over to you to share your story whenever you feel ready.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Cleo, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to the OCO for creating safe spaces where caregivers, especially male caregivers like myself, we can share our stories. And to all the caregivers on this call, I truly believe that all caregivers are superstars. You all are. Thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Avi. I'm an only child, and you see my mom and dad on the slide deck in front of you. I have been in a caregiving role for over 15 years. I often describe myself as a triple duty caregiver, having cared for both my parents while balancing a full-time role in healthcare finance. The last few years have been especially intense for me. Until 2 years ago, I was managing only about on an average 5 hours of sleep a night while caring for my late mother through her cancer journey and supporting my dad who lives with early onset dementia. Since I was working full time and also building a team at work, I had my parents move in with me to better manage their care. The experiences during that time shaped not only who I am as a person, but also how I see healthcare, leadership, and what it means to truly care, especially truly care when you have someone that you love so much in your life. Witnessing a loved one go from or go through different stages of cancer care, surgical intervention, chemotherapy, radiation, and then immunotherapy is a transformative experience. It breaks your heart, no matter how strong you are. You must find the inner strength, not just for yourself, but for the person you are caring for. If I tear up, my mother won't have the strength to go for chemo for the next treatment. My caregiving story began in 2011 when my mother, a joyful professor of sociology, had a triple bypass surgery at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto. She returned home on Halloween. Despite being advised rest, she was at the door handing candies to the kids with a little red heart pinned to her chest. That moment changed my life. It inspired me to dedicate myself to improving care experiences for others. Today, I identify first and foremost as a caregiver, not just because of what I do, but because of what it's taught me: empathy, advocacy, patience, persistence, teamwork, flexibility, and the belief that systems change. They only change with human stories. And each one of you brings that skill set to the team. So kudos to all of you. How would a typical day of caregiving look for a cancer caregiving perspective? A typical day in cancer caregiving is an emotional and logistical marathon. It begins with comforting a tearful parent through the first chemo session and ends with organizing medications, home visits, and medical paperwork across disconnected health systems. Why do I say disconnected? My parent may have a chemo treatment in a downtown hospital, but my parent may land up in a community hospital where I live, and the systems unfortunately don't talk. So you have to take paper copies of all the records to make sure your loved one get the right care. You become the care coordinator, you become the pharmacist, you become the scheduler, and emotional anchor all at once. There are ambulance rides to manage because the parent may no longer be able to sit in a wheelchair. Support workers coming and going through your home, and privacy to protect as illness transforms your loved one's appearance. You learn to adapt, to anticipate every need, and to find dignity and beauty even in the hardest of moments. My mother's journey through cancer taught me that caregiving is both a science and an art. It made me an advocate, especially for male caregivers. I would urge you to talk and share your stories. How does dementia caregiving look like? This is from my dad. Dementia caregiving looks quite different, quieter, but relentless. It's sensor lights and cameras in every nook and corner of my home to prevent falls. It's learning new technologies while researching the latest care gadgets for respite. It's coordinating trusted support workers because routine and familiarity are everything when it comes to dementia. Meals must be balanced, medications must be timed, the patience endless. Sometimes it's locking your home office door. I'm working from my home office today. My dad might just walk in and say hello. So your parent doesn't wander into a virtual meeting, or gently hiding cookies because you know they will find sweets every time. It's a blend of vigilance, humor, and love. I'm constantly bridging that gap between being a son who wants my dad, who wants to enable him to live a life, and being a caregiver who's always protective. Both journeys, cancer and dementia, have taught me that caregiving is an act of invisible strength, lived moment by moment, powered by love and sustained by purpose. Once again, you're all superstars. Kudos to all of you. The next couple of minutes, I'll speak to my journey evolving into a mission. Today, I advocate for accessibility. Every space, from sidewalks to airports to digital tools, should be designed with inclusion in mind. I have become an advocate for accessible travel because no one should have to plan their life around barriers. I take my dad and I go on trips with him. Accessibility has to happen for all of us who are caregivers all the time. Technology as an enabler. Technology can transform caregiving. I've used cameras, motion sensors, and even VR therapy, VR standing for virtual reality therapy, to support my dad's independence and give myself moments of relief. Data, innovation, and smart home design can be powerful allies for caregivers, but you need access, but only if they're designed with empathy. I would love to see adoption of AI tools for smart alerts. I don't want to see all alerts coming on my phones all the time, only the ones that trigger meaningful actions and cut the noise. Because remember, I'm still working. Gender and stigma. I want to hone in on this one. We need to challenge the outdated idea that caregiving is women's work. Men can and should take pride in being caregivers. Leadership isn't diminished by compassion, it's defined by it. It took me years to feel comfortable talking about caregiving, but now I wear it like a badge of honor. I'm extremely proud to be a caregiver. Professional culture. Throughout my journey, my biggest dilemma has been I love my job in healthcare, but I also love my parents. Why do I need to choose one? Why do I need to select one over the other? We need workplace frameworks that allow both to coexist, where caregiving is normalized, it's not stigmatized. Working professionals shouldn't have to hide this part of their lives. I hid it for a long time. Caregivers bring resilience, adaptability, they bring empathy, qualities every organization needs. There is so much opportunity for training and education here. Policy and grief. I'm also advocating for revisions to the Employment Standards Act to include meaningful grief support. Right now, the law allows only a few days to grieve the loss of a loved one, but grief doesn't end when the funeral does. We need policies that recognize the emotional labor of caregiving and loss. Personally, I never had time to grieve. I had to pivot from my mom to my dad's care. These advocacy pillars, accessibility, technology, gender equity, workplace culture, policy, are not just professional goals. They are personal goals for me. They come from lived experience and they guide everything I do today. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you.
Avi, thank you so much. Just listening to your story and seeing some comments in the chat, I think it's clearly resonated with our audience today. So, Amy, I see you're already on. Welcome. I will pass it over for you for a quick welcome, and then I'll let you and Avi get into the discussion. There's a lot of great things that Avi said and that I'm looking forward to hearing.
Thanks, Cleo, and thank you so much, Avi. I wish we had the whole time just to talk with you about your experience. But I'm quite sure that there are so many caregivers who are online live with us today or watching this recording who can relate to so many aspects of your experience. I know that I can from my personal caregiving experience, as well as the opportunity, the real privilege that I have to speak with caregivers all the time. You touched on many common experiences, and I could highlight so many of them, but I'll just call it a couple, and then maybe you and I can chat a little bit more about them. But the emotional labor of caregiving is real, and the amount of time and energy that it takes to do that work, but also to process all of that. You talked about this in terms of grief and not really having the opportunity to work through your own grief in a way that felt manageable and appropriate for you. And so I think there's so much complexity to your story, but also so much commonality that people will be able to relate to. And I'm hoping we can chat a little bit more about what that looks like together. So maybe without me saying any more, we'll just dive in. I'd love to just talk a little bit about OCO and your experience with OCO and tell us what it was like before you connected with OCO and what you were facing that maybe led you to connect with OCO, or sort of a little bit of the before part of that before and after experience for you.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for asking that question, and thanks for being so supportive. And before connecting with the OCO, I was living in what I call a survival mode, and I'm going to put that in quotes. I would go to bed around midnight, wake up at 5 a.m., and often get up multiple times through the night to check on my mom or dad. Balancing work, caregiving, and personal grief felt like living three lives at once. My work in the community sector was more like a break for me. I would leave meetings about healthcare. I would drop off from meetings on projects or budgets and immediately shift into caregiving mode. I would actually even say I never switched off from the caregiving mode. I didn't even call myself a caregiver. And I want this to resonate with people on the call. It took me a long time to even acknowledge that there was that I was a caregiver. I was just a son doing what needed to be done. But that lack of recognition led to exhaustion and isolation. Also, as a man in healthcare leadership, I faced gendered perceptions. The idea that talking about caregiving or grief could be seen as a weakness. So I stayed silent. My mom's care provider actually nominated me for a caregiver recognition award, and I didn't even mention it at work. I went to the event, I didn't mention it at work. That's how deep the stigma was. And I can talk to you a little bit about the ways in which OCO has made a difference in my life. Let me come to that piece. And
So can I
OCO,
call out a
sure,
couple of things before you do that,
sure.
Avi? Because I don't want to lose the thread on a couple of shout
Mhm.
outs that I want to make to what you just said. And then I really want to hear about OCO. Um, you talked in your opening remarks about being a triple duty caregiver. And I just want to underscore that because we talk a lot about double duty caregivers, people who are caregiving in their personal life and people who are caregiving in their work because they're working usually in health and social care. But you are a triple duty caregiver. And so what we see is, it can just stack up depending on
Mhm.
how much caregiving you're doing. And so I think we can't underestimate the strain that that puts on an individual when this is what you're really living 24 hours a day. So I just wanted to call that out as something that people may be able to relate to depending on the kind of work that they do, or depending on the multiple caregiving roles that they're doing. But you also just highlighted something that I think is really, really important, and I just want to underscore it before you keep going, if you don't mind, and that is stigma. Now, for you, that stigma was around gendered perceptions of caregiving, and we do see this, right? We see that people think that this is something that women exclusively do. Now, there are lots of women caregivers, there's no question about it, but there are also lots of men caregivers, right? There's caregivers across the gender spectrum, and people who are taking on this role with family, with chosen family in lots of different ways. And people face cultural expectations, family expectations, internalized expectations, and that impacts their willingness or comfort around letting people know what they're doing or connecting with support. So I just wanted to acknowledge and honor that piece that you're sharing with people, because I think you're bringing a really important element of caregiving that's often hidden into the fore, and I really appreciate that you're doing that. The other piece that I would add to this is that a lot of caregivers feel like they can't ask for help. And there's an internalized stigma related to that, like I'm a professional, or I'm a mom, or I'm a community leader, or I'm a whatever I am, maybe any or all of those things, and many, many more. Whatever your story is about your identity, right? That makes you say, I should just be able to show that I can do this all and that I'm kind of infallible. And we need to be able to connect with support and have those safe spaces to let people know that maybe we're not okay. Maybe sometimes, maybe all the time, or maybe we just need help, right? So I'll use that as my throwback to you now to talk about OCO, and tell us a little bit about your experience of engaging with OCO and what that's meant for you in your life, how that's made a difference for you emotionally, practically, whatever that looks like for you.
Amy, thank you for bringing that as well. And it's very interesting. As I was building teams, I had people on my teams who had small children. I was very flexible with them, but I did not afford the same flexibility to myself. So it's just the way how we think about caregiving. And if you had asked me the word caregiving maybe 5 years ago, I wouldn't even know what caregiving means. I wouldn't even know what it entails. I wouldn't even know whether it makes any difference if I use the word caregiving in sharing my responsibilities and talking about it. There was so much of inherent stigma attached to it. Also, it is the cultural perception. Different cultures coming into the country, they have a different perception towards caregiving. In certain cultures, it is expected, yes, it has to be done. You have to get it done. But at the same time, asking for help is more the exception than the norm. And I think I just want to highlight OCO here in this journey as well, because OCO came in my life and I was running empty. I'm a logic-driven individual, trained in finance. It took me time to build trust. But again, the pandemic helped. Why? Because everything was virtual. You can click on the mouse and you can get access to all the information that you need. But connecting with OCO made me realize that identifying myself as a caregiver was actually an act of empowerment. Through their coaching program, I learned that self-care isn't optional, it is essential. And I'm just going to give a little sample here. If I look at my pictures today and I compare it to my pictures 2 years ago, I feel like I have gone back in time. But if I compare my pictures from 5 years ago and compare it to my pictures 2 years ago, I would feel I've again gone ahead of time. So this is the impact caregiving makes on you, because caregivers give selflessly and they never think about self-care. So coaching program made me realize about self-care. My coach helped me reframe rest as a reflection of being more productive, not indulgence. I began rebuilding healthy habits, restarted weight training and running, taking micro naps. I had stopped running for over 5 years. It was wonderful to start something again, really hard, but I loved it. Walking after meals, setting screen time boundaries, and focusing on nutrition. I also learned to see adaptive equipment, especially the one that I use for my dad, not as a symbol of decline, but of independence. When I take my dad out in my mom's wheelchair, it's a symbol of freedom for me. More important, or most important, the OCO connected me with a community, people who truly get it. Look at all the people here today. Isn't that amazing? It's one voice, caregiving. It reminded me that we are not alone, we are part of a movement. That's where OCO made an impact. Amy?
So, Abby, I'm writing down my 4 words. I just needed to finish scribbling the last one. Here's the 4 words that I heard you say that I want to call out for people. The first is independence. And you actually used my second word first, but let me just do this in this order. You talked about independence for your dad, but I think there's such a relationship between his independence and your independence. And you have an interdependence, but you recognize that you both have needs that need to be taken care of. The next word that I want to call out that you used is empowerment. And you talked about how the experiences of engaging with OCO empowered you. But I also feel, and you can correct me, please, if I'm wrong, but that there has been an empowerment in your caregiving relationship as well, right? That it's not just for you as an individual, but when you're empowered, your care recipient is also empowered. And similarly, when we as caregivers feel disempowered, then the reverse can also be true. The third word I want to call out is freedom. And I think that this is another one that's really mutual, is when you feel that you have the freedom to run, to I loved the things that you gave as examples of the things that you worked on through your own plan with your coach, and how those things, in terms of coming back to yourself and taking care of yourself, really gave you the freedom to kind of navigate all of these things in your life. Because it's not like your caregiving commitments went away, but you found freedom within that. And then the last one, which I am truly so grateful to hear you talk about, is around community. And I see so many comments coming up in the chat from people who are talking about relating to your story, appreciating your vulnerability, which I also want to echo my appreciation. That sense of not being alone, for me, I think is one of the biggest things that we can offer as an organization. And whether it's in a one-to-one relationship where you're talking with a caregiver coach who has their own depth of caregiving experience, or through peer support, mentorship, whatever the case may be, or even coming online in a group like this where you're just hearing and chatting with other people, that sense of community and taking us out of what I think can be a very isolating experience is really, really key. So I so appreciate you sharing those examples of that impact on your life, and how you work together with your coach around your plan. So I'm wondering if you had to encapsulate your message into one thing for caregivers who are struggling, those people who might look like your picture from 5 years ago, somewhere in that 5 years ago to 2 years ago window where you said, oh, I could, what I think I heard from you was you could see the strain on your
Mhm.
face, and it was
Mhm.
impacting how you feel you looked, and how you were showing up in the world. So for those people who might look in the mirror or see a picture of themselves or just know how they feel, who are saying, this is hard, and maybe I don't know how I can keep going, or I don't have a plan like you're talking about, what would you say to them for those folks?
First of all, accept the fact that you are a caregiver. Accept the fact that you're doing something incredible. Accept the fact that you are a superstar. And also, I would say, start small. You know, little shifts you make every day add up to big transformations. Nothing happens overnight. I strongly believe in the 1% rule. You keep making changes and you see transformative change. And caregiving isn't about perfection. Let me tell you about my story. So it's about persistence, creativity, and servicing with the heart. And also, the most important thing I would say is always be inclusive. What I mean with that is, you saw the picture of me and my dad on that slide deck. There's an indoor running track near my home. I signed up to that, where I take my dad with me. He walks, I run. Every lap I take, I think of my mom, her strength, her smile, her quiet resilience. Even though she's gone, her spirit is my fuel. So try to have activities where you saw the picture of my dad in Huntsville. Yes, he needs a wheelchair sometimes, but when he's excited, he can walk. And he was extremely excited. We went to a pumpkin farm. He had an incredible time. He did not even think about a wheelchair. So try to have activities where the whole family gets together. And if you're living alone, think about activities in which your friends, other people in your neighborhood can come together and enable the person who is the one that you're providing care for. Give them a chance, and you will find that it will make a big difference. That's my message.
So, Avi, I have a few comments to make about what you just shared, but I'm going to give you the heads up so you can think about it while I chatter for a minute. I'd love to go off script with you for a second and talk a bit about mental health, which is something that you and I chatted about prior to this session. So, just if you want to think about that, my next question is going to come from mental health, but I want to say a couple of things
Mhm.
about what you just said. You talked about, this idea of being a superhero. And I was in a session with caregivers through a rural and remote caregiving project that we're doing right now, talking with caregivers about their experience from rural and remote communities. And one of the caregivers said, we're superheroes in comfy clothes. And I thought
Ah,
that that was so great because, if you might be sitting in the hospital waiting room with the
right.
specialist for a long time, you really might wear the comfy pants and the comfy shoes those days. And I really appreciated that line. But I think I want to just call out a couple more things that you shared there that people are responding to in the chat, and that I think many, many caregivers would respond to, which is just this idea of little shifts. We don't have to make a huge change, but it's like a compass. If we change by
Mhm.
1 degree, then eventually we're moving off into a different direction. So what are those little, you talked about micro naps, what are those micro changes or those micro habits that we can do that can make a big difference in our lives? And I think that's a great call to action for all of us to just say, are there little things I can do in my day that are going to make it easier for me? Or are there little asks for help that I can make, that will make things easier for me? But then I just want to finish calling out this piece about inclusivity and activities. And I'm going to build on what you said because your examples were just so beautiful. I want to talk about holidays because there are a lot of holidays that different people celebrate in different communities at any time of the year. So it doesn't matter whether it's this time of the year or any time, whether it's family milestones or different types of holidays. And I think that this is one of the ways that we can adapt as caregivers is I feel personally so much pressure for holidays to look the same, right? As they always did. And I had an experience with a holiday recently where my dad said to me, I don't want to do it that way. I don't think that works for me. And I had to process this emotional expectation I had of like, yeah, but I'm about to turn myself into a pretzel to make it work. And he's telling me, I don't even want you to. Right. And so, you know, I love what you shared about the inclusivity of activities. And I want to build on that by saying, but they don't have to be, whether they're holidays, traditions, milestones, celebrations, whatever it is, they don't have to be the same way as they always were.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it's about what are those inclusive activities, milestones, celebrations that work now. And I see people, chatting in the chat about ways that they've adapted for holidays and transitions. And I think that's one of the things that we can give ourselves permission to do. So I just wanted to call that out. So here's my off script question, Avi,
Sure.
because, we've chatted about this, you've acknowledged this around caregiver mental health and how that is something that most of us face challenges around moments where things can feel pretty down. They can feel pretty dark. We can feel pretty, to use a Canadian example, like snowed under in our
Mhm,
own
mhm.
experience of caregiving. And so I wonder if you have any comments around mental health for caregivers, connecting with support, and really moving through that aspect of things as well.
Great question. And I would say mental health is exceptionally important. And that's why I gave the example of the picture before. To just for the viewers on the call, how I cope with grief. Maybe that example will help. So I pivoted from my mom's passing and the funeral to taking care of my dad. So for the next 6 to 7 months, I just didn't take care of myself. But I have a little shrine built in my home, and I start every day over there. I start, praying for my mom, a little meditation, and I start my day from there. And one day, it was, I think, at the 6 month mark, I came down and there was a question that I asked, would my mom like to see me like this? And the answer I got was no. Would she be happy leaving my dad in my care like this? And the answer was again no. And third thing was, why am I thinking about mom is gone? I come from her. I am a part of her. As long as I live my life based on the values and the ethics that she's taught me, it's pretty much I honor her. So that was the mental shift, but it takes time. It takes time when you are constantly shifting, constantly reallocating to battles. So it takes time. And I also found that I also had the pleasure of working with a very good nutritionist who allowed changes to my dad's diet, which allowed him to sleep a little longer in the morning and more restful sleep, so I could do a lot of my focused work time early in the morning. So there's so many different aspects to care that allow you to manage mental health. And I believe the first step to this is your own sleep, nutrition, and exercise. If you do self care, everything will fall in place. And don't be a perfectionist. Small little changes every day, they help.
That's great, Avi. I really, really appreciate that. And I just want to acknowledge what you said about your mom. I feel very similarly. My mom passed away about 15 years ago, and I am the primary caregiver here locally with my dad. And I think about honoring my mom all the time, and really making sure that my dad has everything he needs, because that's my commitment to him, but it's also my commitment to her. So I really can relate to that a lot. But I appreciate you calling out the connection between physical and mental health, and that connection of, is this maybe what somebody else would want, like your mom, but also, is this what you would want, right?
Mhm,
And so,
mhm,
look, we all have moments where we feel stretched far too thin, and those can happen far too often. But we have to kind of find that way to say, okay, in this moment, I have to choose this. In this moment, I have to balance that. And I think your example of working with the nutritionist for a practical solution that then came back to, there's that freedom word again, right? That
mhm,
gave you the
mhm,
freedom to have your focused time to do your work, right? And I think, I chuckle all the time at the creative solutions and the ways and things. I remember writing thank you notes for speakers for an
mhm,
event that we were
mhm,
having, sitting in a specialist waiting room with my dad, thinking to myself, this is kind of a funny, ironic moment, but
mhm,
but it works. So it's about, what are the unusual ways that we make it work, which caregivers are able to do all the time. So, Avi, I so appreciate your sharing. There has been a ton of chatter in the chat responding. I hope you'll have a chance to take a look at that momentarily. But I will just say that on behalf of the group, I appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty, your very practical ideas, and your willingness to share your story. Because every time a caregiver comes forward and talks about their own lived experience, it really, whether people are caregivers today or have been in the past or think they might be in the future, it's so relatable. And so your willingness to do that is something that I know everybody here is grateful for. There will be people who will watch the recording. And so thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today, and for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much. And remember, folks, you're all superstars. Okay.
Yay. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you. We are going to get practical now, and I'm really excited to turn it back over to Cleo so people can learn a little bit more about how to connect.
Thank you so much, Amy and Avi. Wow. Amy, I echo your statements. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. It's a little bit impossible, so this will be a great Q&A as well. So yeah, let's get into the website and see how and what supports we offer at OCO. Avi and Amy did touch on some already, so I'll be very excited to share those programs. So I'm just going to share my screen here and we'll do a bit of a walkthrough together. So the first program I really want to highlight is our 24/7 helpline and chat. So you can call the helpline at this number directly, where you'll be able to speak with someone who will be able to support you with either finding local community supports or resources, or perhaps specific information on a caregiving topic as well. You can also click on the chat option, where if you fill out a little bit of information, you'll be connected to a live 211 agent. It's a great resource, like I said, for some local community navigation or finding specific supports. I should probably also start off by saying our website is ontariocaregiver.ca. So this will be pretty high level overview. So of course, feel free to go and explore it yourself as well. I want to move now to some of the supports we offer specifically for caregivers. So this is where Amy and Avi mentioned peer support, coaching. So let's take a look at some of the peer support programs that we do offer. I did see in the chat a question about if we offer support groups, and we definitely do. It's one of our two choices of different peer support programs. So with our peer support programs, we offer one-to-one peer support as well as online support groups. So with our one-to-one peer support, you can be matched with a trained volunteer caregiver. We call them peer mentors. It's a telephone-based program. And this program is great because often caregivers want to talk with someone in a similar experience. So whether you're caring for someone, that's a parent, you want to talk to another caregiver who's caring for a parent, or you're caring for someone with a mental health challenge and you want to talk to someone who's also cared for someone with a mental health challenge, is a great option. So you'll see that a bit here. Apologies, my internet is a bit delayed. So the one-to-one peer support programs here, you click that, it would bring you to a registration page. And then on the right, here's our online support groups. So you can see that we offer quite a bit of different support groups. There's a lot of flexibility here. We offer them in the morning, the evening for working caregivers. We have specific groups for young caregivers, for francophone caregivers, and we recently added this new support group called Change in Caregiver Identity. So for experienced caregiver whose role has maybe changed, so such as when the person they care for may not need support, they move to a different type of care, they transition to end of life care. We found that this change in identity has been really helpful for caregivers to work through in similar situations. So I encourage people to take a look, and often I recommend caregivers to start off with a support group if you're unsure about what support you may need, because it's flexible, it's a drop-in format, so you don't need to attend every group that's available. And you're welcome, obviously, to share or listen as well. So I'm going to go back to look at one of the programs Avi mentioned, which is our caregiver coaching program. So this is a great program if you're looking to work one-on-one with a professional coach. So people always ask me, what is a coach? Who is a coach? So our coaches have a professional background in health or social services, but they're also either caregivers themselves or have been caregivers, so they really do get it. Unlike peer support, coaching is really much focused on the caregiver. You're working towards a goal, you're building a plan on a really complex caregiving challenge. So it might be carving that time out for yourself, as Avi was mentioning. Setting boundaries is a really big one that often comes forward when we talk with caregivers who are interested in coaching, developing communication skills with healthcare providers or other family members. We know sometimes family dynamics can be stressful when trying to care for one person, and there's a lot of different moving pieces or opinions. So, if you're interested in caregiver coaching, you can register directly on our website, and someone will be in touch with you within 3 to 5 business days to see if it's a really good fit for you. Because there is a little bit of accountability in the sense the coach will work on activities with you and you will go and try to implement that in your day-to-day caregiving role as well. So, another great program, but of course I am biased, is our SCALE program, and it's actually running live right now. So, our SCALE program is a great combination of live psychoeducational webinars and free counseling. We partner with a mental health professional, and we really go into unpacking difficult caregiving emotions. So, you can see that these are some of the topics. So, we talk about anger, resentment, grief, loneliness. So, we try to unpack these emotions, acknowledge them, but provide strategies and coping strategies as well. And the great thing about the SCALE program is we run it twice a year, but you don't have to wait to attend the live version because we also have recordings on demand. So if you don't have time to attend the live, or you want to take it in the summer when we're not running the live, you can look at our recorded webinars and workbooks on our website, and you can take it at your own pace. So this is really great because you can watch the psychoeducational webinar and then you can look at our workbook. And our workbook will basically have key activities, a summary of the webinar, reflection questions for you to journal, and other suggested resources for that topic as well. So again, it's just a great resource to kind of pace it out yourself as well. But if you're interested in the live, then there's also access to free online or individual counseling too. So the other thing that I often get when I chat with caregivers when looking for support is they don't know where to begin, or they feel overwhelmed and they're not sure what support is right for them. So we do have this really great online quiz on our website. So whether you're new to caregiving or you're really not sure what you need in the moment because perhaps you are feeling overwhelmed, you can take this quiz. It's pretty short. It's about 6 questions, but it will ask you, who are you caring for, how you like to learn, what you're interested to learn, and it will give you a quick list of suggested resources. So I will go through this pretty quickly so you can see what it looks like on the other end. But again, it's a great place to start if you're really unsure on the best type of support as well. So you can see with some of the questions, like here, they're asking, how anxious are you feeling right now? What kind of information do you think would help you? And then here's a suggestion. Of course, I went through this pretty blindly, but it gives great suggestions. So here it gives peer support scale, resources into emotions and caregiving. So it only takes a few minutes, and highly recommend that as a good place to start. The last thing I want to leave everyone with is the opportunity to sign up for our newsletter. I also recommend this to caregivers who connect with us as a way to either keep updated on our programs and services or connect to timely webinars or podcasts. Also, just a way to stay connected because if you're not interested in support right now, you're connected and you can keep tabs of when programs are available and when you feel comfortable to connect for support. So you could do that easily by clicking getting in touch and subscribe, and that will take you to our subscription page where you can apply for a caregiver newsletter Or if you're a provider and you support caregivers in your work, you can apply for a different provider-specific newsletter. But of course, if you're a caregiver, you just fill out this information and you'll get a monthly newsletter. So this was very high level again. I just wanted to hit some of the programs and services that Avi and Amy talked about. But if you have the time, I suggest going through our website as well, or if not, signing up for our newsletter to find out all the latest program updates. So I'm going to stop talking because I know we have a lot of questions, and I'm going to welcome back Avi and Amy. And I just really want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to do our best to get through all the questions we have today. But if we don't get you to your question today, you can always email us at info@ontariocaregiver.ca. So we did get some questions submitted when you registered, but please also type them into the chat and we'll do our best to get through. So Avi, Amy, are you ready? So the first question, and it's really to both of you. So this caregiver is new to Ontario, and they want to know, which programs are available and accessible to them as a caregiver, but really, where should they start? And I'm wondering, Avi, if you can kind of reflect on how you started and where you started, and Amy maybe providing the OCO experience on kind of the best way to start looking at all this information available.
Thanks, Cleo, and well, welcome to Ontario, and hopefully you have a great caregiving experience here. There's a wealth of information. I would say strongly start with the OCO websites. And I'm going to pass it over to Amy, and you're going to find a wealth of information. Perhaps you will find definitions. Perhaps you might even um, figure out in this journey what kind of a caregiver you are and what are the different options available to you as well. So over to Amy.
Savvy, I would obviously everything is on our website, but if you are trying to figure out what other programs and services you might want to connect with, calling our 24/7 helpline is a great place to start because then you can have a conversation with a real human being and you can talk about your particular caregiving circumstances. They can talk to you about OCO's programs and services, but also other things in your community that might be relevant for the person that you're caring for. And so what we want to make sure is that you're connected with the support that you need from us. But if there is other things for you or for the person that you care for locally, we want to make sure you connect with those as well. So I think that's a great place to start. If there is a particular diagnosis, perhaps connecting with the organization that's relevant to that as well is a good place to start.
Perfect. Thanks so much, both. So I'm just going to keep going with the questions. The next question came from a comment in the chat. So this caregiver has been a caregiver for 34 years for their disabled adult child, and they said they would not change the role. They've chosen to do this every single day. They admit it's been hard, it's been challenging, but also incredibly rewarding and something that brings them joy. And I think the rewarding aspect of caregiving often gets lost. So, what do you find is the most rewarding aspect of your experience as a caregiver?
That's a great question. So for me, the most important part for caregiving is this was a person who took care of me when I was a child. This was a person who was with me every step of the way. So at least I had an opportunity to take care of this beautiful person and help them through their journey. The second piece when I think about my dad is I promised my mom. She took care of my dad and I promised my mom. So to me, it is like honoring my relationship with my mom. And I find that with my dad, caregiving is a lot easier because in cancer care, the the condition of a person undergoing cancer care can sometimes change 3 times a week. So it is difficult. At the same time, you find inner strength. So it's definitely rewarding. When I look back and if someone asks me, would you do it again? 100%. I'll do it again. Yeah. Amy?
So I would say yes, yes, yes to everything that Abby has just said. And I really feel that caregiving allows you to connect with and know someone in a totally different way. So they may not always be great moments. We've all had challenging moments as caregivers, but that relationship can really deepen and evolve and have this amazing opportunity for humor and understanding and all sorts of different things that come out of caregiving. And so I think that's part of the richness of life, is that you get to relate with people and know them and connect with them, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do that through caregiving as well.
And can I add one other aspect to this as well? The the beauty about caring for someone who perhaps is going through end of life care is that you understand the true meaning of life. You may find that you have been spending your life in running after pursuits that don't really matter. What really matters is at that point of time where you are and how much care you can give to that person. Your presence is more important than the things you have. That's what I want to say.
Agreed.
Beautiful. Before I get to the other question, I did see a question about whether our programs and services are free. So they are free of cost. Just wanted to validate and confirm that as well. So for the next question, Avi and Amy, let's get super practical. So Avi, you mentioned wearing multiple hats, and I think the biggest hat is often the coordination, the appointments, working with healthcare providers. What are some of your best tips for organizing appointments, cancellations, rescheduling appointments without missing anything or missing a beat? What has helped you that you think you'd share with caregivers who are struggling with this?
Thank you. So, to answer that question, I'm going to take you in the pandemic time. Hospitals are closed to visitors. I work in the hospital that provides cancer care, so I can go as a staff member. However, visitors are not allowed. Most of the appointments are virtual. Please note, not all people undergoing cancer care are actually technically savvy, so many people are missing their appointments. Please note that people who are in stage one, because of the longer wait times, they may have moved to a stage four. Because of the timings, some people may have dropped off the cancer list as well. So keep all that in mind. And now, giving an answer to your question would be it is exceptionally difficult to manage those pieces. You just have to, I used to take sometimes people say one day at a time. I used to say 20 minutes at a time because things were changing for me so fast. Also, I'm also the breadwinner for the family. So I needed to make sure financially every decision that I take has repercussions. I was also working and also making sure that I was building teams in the hospital. So recruitment was a big challenge during the pandemic times, if you recall. Having said all of this, some of the things that helped me, for example, when my mom was home, I had a slew of services in the house because I wanted to make sure mom got the best possible care at home. So for that one, I had a lockbox outside. The lockbox really helped for PSWs, for physios, for OC health, for anyone, the doctors, anyone coming in, because the home was literally my alerts on the phone were running all the time because there was someone always at the door. The other thing I find is, which really helps, is speak to the care providers, connect with the care providers. Everybody has a lot of empathy. Everyone is struggling. The PSW coming to my house to provide care to my mom, she actually has a family back in the Philippines where she has to provide remote care. So empathy really works. The other thing I find is the when it comes to the medical management as well as the medicines, blister packs help. Connect with your pharmacist. make sure the pharmacist is on your speed dial. A lot of the pharmacists have apps at this point of time. It will allow you to manage the care from a drugs perspective as well. So some of these things help. I will also mention that this is a safe space. I'm going to mention that my mother was a genius in her work. You put her in front of a Teams invite, and she would really not know where to go. So I had to sit with her with my laptop to make sure when she had appointments, she was actually able to meet the doctor. And there was also times, I'm just sharing this here as well. It's hard to imagine a lady who was so cheerful, who was so full of life. She needed a walker, then she needed a wheelchair. She couldn't move in the bed. There was a time I had to arrange ambulances all the time because she could only move in a stretcher, right? So there are different aspects to the care, right? And I think all of these pieces help. But the most important thing is talk to people. The most important thing you can do is talk to another caregiver. There are so many other people who are in a similar boat. There was a time I had to take an ambulance down, and I found out that the neighbor in the next house, she was suffering from another issue as well. So we both co-shared an ambulance, took it down. So it's all about communication, and you can find the tools. I'm going to stop here. I can keep going on.
Thank you, Avi. And no, I'm looking at the time and we're at time. I feel like we need a part two here. There's just so many questions to go through. But before we formally conclude today's webinar, I just wanted to give Avi, you and Amy the opportunity to do any final last thoughts or closing words for caregivers in our audience today or who is in our audience.
I'm just going to say that your story is powerful. Male caregivers, please share your stories. Resilience is inspiring, and your voice can change the system. It took me time. It took me a long time, but here I am sharing my story. Please start sharing your stories. Thank you.
Thanks, Avi. I want to say a particular thank you to you. I'm so grateful, and I know so many people are, for you sharing your story today. So thank you. Cleo, Marnie, the whole team who worked together on this webinar. We really appreciate all of your efforts to make this go so smoothly and for sharing everything out for everyone today. And to everyone who has been commenting, asking questions, engaging, and to those who will also watch the recording, thank you to all of you for what you do every day, for engaging with us. Please do connect with us for the support that you need, and we'll look forward to further conversations.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you again, Avi and Amy. And thank you for everyone in our audience as well, and for those being so vulnerable in the chat. It's really great to see that conversation and dialogue.